Hi, this is Tommy Stevens, and welcome to another in a series of technology tips provided to you by K2 Enterprises. This tip focuses on the new IFS function that Microsoft has added to Excel 2019. With the release of Excel 2019, Microsoft did indeed add the IFS function to the spreadsheet application. Now, although IFS appeared first in 2016 for those who were Office 365 subscribers, Microsoft chose not to include it with the release of Excel 2016. Now, essentially, the ifs function allows users to create formulas that test for multiple conditions without having to repeat an if function multiple times within the same formula. In this tip, you will learn how you can create very powerful formulas using the new ifs function found in Excel 2019. Suppose, for example, that you need to create a report that summarizes financial information, such as that shown on the screen, by a fiscal year that begins on April 1st and ends on March 31st. More specifically, you might need to summarize this data by fiscal quarter. Now, of course, among the many options you have for completing this task is to add formulas to the source transactional data that helps you to identify the appropriate fiscal quarter and fiscal year, and then using the data in those columns, those newly created columns, as the foundation for summarizing data by fiscal reporting period. In the spreadsheet that you currently see on the screen, we have already created those formulas, and let's step you through what those formulas, including one that uses the new ifs function, might look like. In column E, notice that indeed I have created a formula using an ifs function, and in column F, I've created a formula using an if function. Now, both of those formulas are providing to me the same results. Since you are most likely already familiar with the if function, let's approach that one first. And I'm going to just kind of slide my screen off to the right a little bit so we can see the entire formula at the same time on one line. Notice that what we're doing here is testing cell A2 to determine if the month number in cell A2, first off, if that month number is less than 4. Now remember, we're on a fiscal year that starts on April 1st and ends on March 31st. So if the month number is less than 4, then what we are saying is we want our fiscal quarter to be the fourth fiscal quarter. On the other hand, if the month number in cell A2 is less than 7, that is, if it's 4, 5, or 6, March, April, or April, May, or June, my apologies, then we must be in the first fiscal quarter. And likewise, if that month number is less than 10, that is to say if it's 7, 8, or 9, if it is July, August, or September, then we must be in the second fiscal quarter. And if it is less than 13, that is, it is 10, 11, or 12, October, November, or December, we must be in the third fiscal quarter. Now, certainly we were able to accomplish that by nesting multiple if functions inside the same formula. And of course, at the very beginning of the formula, we see that we're adding the letter Q, and of course, we're surrounding that in quotation marks to indicate that it is text. We're adding that to the results of the nested if functions in order to derive Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. That's the historical approach toward accomplishing this objective. Now see that we can create a much shorter, a simpler formula in cell E2 using the new ifs function. Now keep in mind the ifs function was just added to Excel 2019, although if you're an Office 365 subscriber, you've been able to use it since around the year 2006. We start out with a single ifs function. Notice that there are not multiple ifs functions inside the formula. And that is in fact one of the advantages of working with ifs. You do not have to repeat the if function multiple times. And we use the same logic. If the month that is in cell A2, if that is less than 4, that is to say if it's 1, 2, or 3, January, February, or March, we must be in the fourth fiscal quarter. But if that month is less than 7, that is to say if it's 4, 5, or 6, April, May, or June, then we must be in the first fiscal quarter. And if that month is less than 10, that is to say it is July, August, or September, then we must be in the second fiscal quarter. And finally, if the month is less than 13, that is to say if it's 10, 11, or 12, of course, October, November, or December, then we have to be in the third fiscal quarter. Now, the clear advantage of using ifs as opposed to multiple nested if statements is the simplicity and the brevity of the formula by not having to repeat multiple if statements inside the same formula. It's a very familiar function. If you're already using if, you should have no problem transitioning into ifs. In fact, the only downside that I can identify towards starting to use the ifs function instead of multiple if statements is if you then send this workbook containing an ifs function back to another user running a prior version of Excel where ifs is not supported, then you're going to have some version incompatibility issues. Otherwise, as far as I can see, it should be full speed ahead with the ifs function. With the 2019 release of Excel, Microsoft certainly added several new functions. One of these, of course, ifs, allows you to create formulas that perform multiple tests without having to repeat an if statement multiple times within the same formula. So, if you're running Excel 2019, or if your instance of Excel is provisioned through a Microsoft Office 365 subscription, be sure to take advantage of this great new function. Thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you in future K2 Enterprises tips.